Ladies and gentlemen, what is behind us, Nathan?
This is the brand new Dodge Challenger Hellcat.
And welcome to Hellcat Week, but there's a caveat. A lot of the information that we got driving this car today is embargoed.
That's right, driving impressions are embargoed. However, we have something we can show you.
So, coming up first on Hellcat Week, everything you ever wanted to know about the Hellcat engine, and that is not embargoed. And check it out now.
Talk about the 6.2 litre Hellcat engine, 707 horsepower, 6,000 RPM, 650 pounds-feet at 4,800 RPM. And you may remember Brina mentioned that the standard HEMI engine produces 410 pounds-feet of peak torque. This thing does 411 pounds-feet of torque at 1,200 RPM. Generates so much power, we actually had to upgrade all of our test cells at CTC. We didn't have any test cells that could handle the airflow or the power output. So that was one of the first jobs that we had. In fact, the first engines we tested, we could only test up to just over 600 horsepower. So we had to do that upgrade in order for us to do the program. So what's different about it? Basically, new block, new heads, new bottom end, new valve train components. 91% of this engine is new compared to a 392 or the 6.4 litre Apache engine. So significant amount of changes required in order to generate this amount of power. Obviously, sitting on top of it, one of the biggest changes, 2.4 litres per rev supercharger. We run this up to about 14,600 RPM. And about just over 11 PSI boost. Twin integrated charge air coolers, which are linked to the low temp cooling system that Russ talked about, drags our air inlet temperatures down from about 120 degrees centigrade to about 60 degrees. So a huge enabler in order for us to make the power. This thing flows about 30,000 litres of air a minute at rated. So if you've all got an office that's 10 foot by 13 foot, run this in it for a minute, there's no air left in that office. So it really, really does suck a huge amount of air. To drive it, 10 rib poly V belt at the front on a custom tuned damper and an overrun clutch on the supercharger as well. So we can only transmit torque in one direction, the drive direction. About 80 horsepower to drive this thing at 6,000 RPM. So significant amount of power through that drive system. What else changes? All of that boost that we run basically puts a significant amount of load onto the bottom end of the engine. So where the naturally aspirated Apache engine runs about 80 bar peak firing pressure, on this engine we run about 110 bar peak firing pressure. It's a relatively large bore engine, 103.9 mil. So that results in 21,000 pounds of load on top of every piston, every firing event. So 5 family sedans standing on top of each piston every time we fire the spark plugs. Because of that, we've got fully forged pistons. We have some very, very special diamond-like carbon-coated piston pins, heavy forged conrods, and then the crankshaft we have to run induction hardened bearing surfaces, whereas traditionally Chrysler runs soft bearing surfaces on their crankshaft. So quite a significant change to the bottom end of the engine. Oil pumps are upgraded as well. We pump more oil through the engine, piston cooling jets that have a higher flow rate. So really lots of extra work to try and harness all of that power. The engine's built in our Saltillo, Mexico plant, along with all of the HEMIs, but one big change for this engine, every single engine is dyno tested for 42 minutes prior to delivery to the customer. We run a special cycle which effectively runs the engine in, and then we do a number of checks. We get up to about 5,200 RPM and 90% load. So every engine before it goes to the customer has been run under load. To harness all this power, we've got two transmission options that go with the engine. The 8-speed transmission, upgraded by 30% torque capacity over the transmission used in the V8 car. Basically, that upgrade is by adding extra friction discs in the clutches, there are extra pinions, and the gears are wider. So, very, very substantial transmission on the 8-speed side. On the manual side, we use the Viper transmission, but again, because of the increased torque, we actually add an internal oil cooling pump, and that circulates oil to an external heat exchanger to try and keep everything in check. So ultimately, that's the two powertrain options we offer in the Hellcat, either the manual or the auto, and you'll get the chance to experience them both today.
The Hellcat. Wait. Go on back there, check this out. That's just healthy and badass. Cojones!
It's port injected. The HEMI architecture with the two plugs and the port injection, we thought we wanted to retain that. We've got a lot of experience with that arrangement, and obviously generating the power wasn't really a problem for us without DI. Also, getting injectors that can physically flow enough fuel is quite a problem. So these injectors flow 600 cc's a minute. If we actually squirted them into a pint glass, they'll fill a pint glass in 7 seconds at rated power. So huge amount of fuel, and in order to get that fuel into the engine, we have to run a variable pressure pump in the car. So we run at 2 bar at idle, and then we ramp that up to 5 bar at rated power, just because we can't get enough fuel through the injectors, or we would have to have so large an injector it wouldn't idle. So we got this trade-off between making the engine idle okay and then being able to put enough fuel in it at rated power.
If it's 80 horsepower to run the supercharger,
yes.
How does that affect the total horsepower? 707, where is it on the ground? Is it, where is the 80 horsepower?
The 707 is the net output from the back of the crankshaft. It's measured by the SAE method. Not on the wheels. We have it on an engine dyno, hooked up to a dynamometer. SAE come into Chrysler, witness the tests, and say this is a real 707 horsepower. They check all of the parameters to make sure that we're running the real calibration on that dyno. But effectively, the work being done on the pistons has to be 80 horsepower more than the 707 to take account of the drive. So really, it's over by the time you look at all of the friction, it's really producing 800 and something horsepower.
Do you need a different kind of starter motor to get the 80 horsepower running up for the supercharger to run the other thing?
No, it's a standard starter motor. Compression ratio is a little bit lower on this engine, 9.5 to 1 versus 10.9 to 1 on an actually aspirated engine, but it's a standard starter motor.
Any particular brand of the supercharger, Roots or something like that?
It's a twin screw supercharger. It's supplied by IHI, is the company.
And the peak horsepower output, was a sheer matter of chance that it came on 707?
No.
Not because it sounded kind of catchy.
It's
oh my God.
The target was 700. But we didn't want to do exactly 700 or a 701, everybody's going to say. that's not really 700. What was it? 699. So 707 was my team's internal target. We thought it had a nice ring to it, and there was no doubt at all that it was in the 700. Aluminium oil pan, aluminium supercharger, cast iron block, aluminium cylinder heads, cast steel fabricated manifolds. We've got dual wall, but relatively conventional engine material.
Chris, in your naturally aspirated version,
Yes.
do you have any future plans to have an aluminum block?
Not at the moment. We've done a lot of studies looking at it, but no, there are no plans at the moment.
So Chris, when tuners get at this thing, how much power can you get up to 1,000, I guess? That's the question that a lot of people will be asking.
Well, the big challenge is unlocking the ECU. We run with locked ECUs at Chrysler. So the tuning guys typically have to take off our control system, put another control system on. Of course, there'll be people that go and upgrade.
Bigger supercharger.
Bigger
Flash tune
supercharger,
it.
or try and drive it faster, run the engine faster. There are a number of ways. We haven't explored the number that we could produce.
Wet sump or dry sump?
It's wet sump.
And so has Hennessy got one of these things yet?
I hope not.
Ferrari, you're going to put it in one of them things?
No, it's a slightly different DNA to a Ferrari engine.
Nathan, that's just a taste of what's coming up on the Fast Lane car. What else have we got for these fine viewers?
Folks, we have cars that take on the Challenger from Camaro, from Mustang, and they're going to be taking them on head to head, and we're going to have that for you.
Is that a mashup or a matchup?
It's going to be a matchup.
And my best and favorite video is Nathan trying to take this car from 0 to 60, but I fear that's a driving impression, and you're going to have to wait on that one.
That's right, folks. We got a lot of stuff coming up.
As always, this is Roman.
And Nathan.
Saying thanks for watching, and check out the Fast Lane car for
News, views, and real-world reviews.
ciao.